Society repeats a very specific script about loyalty. We are told that staying close to the people we grew up with is a moral virtue, and that leaving your childhood friends behind is a sign of arrogance. When you start elevating your goals, that script triggers a deep sense of guilt. You feel a persistent, uncomfortable pressure to downplay your ambitions just to make the people around you feel comfortable. But a personal network operates exactly like a biological organism. It is never neutral. The people you spend time with are either actively compounding your ambition, or they are operating at a massive energetic deficit, feeding on your focus. Clinging to those stagnant relationships out of nostalgia is a self-sabotaging mechanism. A man ascending a mountain cannot drag the weight of those who refuse to climb. To stop this drain, you have to execute a ruthless audit of your inner circle. This diagram shows a minimalist personal balance sheet. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with and divide them into 2 columns. Are they discussing wealth and building systems, which classifies them as assets? Or are they complaining about their bosses and waiting for the weekend, placing them strictly in the liabilities column? If they fall into that second category, you must strike them from your daily routine. Misery is highly contagious. You have to cut the cord, regardless of your shared history. When you actually apply this rule, the immediate result is usually a state of near total social isolation. You will find yourself eating alone and working in silence. This isolation is a feature, not a bug. It is a necessary business quarantine. Being alone is vastly preferable to the slow infection of mediocrity. Once you have purged the dead weight, you need to replace it. Amateurs attempt this by walking into crowded networking events and desperately handing out business cards to anyone who makes eye contact. The flaw in this approach is the underlying question they are asking: what can these people do for me? By asking for favors and attention up front, they instantly position themselves as a liability to the exact people they want to meet. High-level relationships operate on a completely different standard, known as the currency of access. This is the understanding that elite networks are built exclusively on the proactive, silent exchange of undeniable value. You cannot afford to ask a powerful person for their time. Instead, you have to bring your own capital to the exchange. This radar chart shows a hypothetical leader's operational strengths, but notice the glaring gap in the bottom right quadrant. This is the king's blind spot. Every successful operator lacks something: specific intelligence, a technical skill, or a trusted proxy to handle tasks they despise. Your objective is to map that exact deficit and become aggressively useful. You find the missing piece, bring the Beal, and solve that specific problem in total silence. By doing the work without asking for permission or a meeting beforehand, you completely bypass the traditional gatekeepers. Delivering a finished solution naturally triggers the psychological law of reciprocity. High-level operators recognize utility as a rare commodity. When you consistently eliminate their friction, you become a structural necessity rather than an outside solicitor. You don't ask for a seat at the table, you provide the reason the table exists. With access secured, you graduate to the highest level of network engineering, constructing your war room. At this stage, you are no longer looking for buddies who echo your own opinions. You are drafting a highly diversified board of directors to scale your operations. This organizational chart outlines the 4 archetypes required for a functional empire. First is the architect, the individual who builds the operational systems. Next is the financier, who understands the movement and deployment of capital. Then you need the enforcer, the person capable of handling conflict without emotion. Finally, the connector, the strategist who manages social infrastructure and institutional introductions. The engine that makes this network function is aligned incentives. Each archetype's personal self-interest must be tethered directly to your overarching vision. By ensuring their success is a direct derivative of your own, you transform potential rivals into dedicated stakeholders. They won't just support the empire, they will actively protect the structure to preserve their own yields. The directive for today is clear. You must audit your circle immediately. Look at the people around you, and ask if they are helping you conquer or if their presence is quietly forcing you to surrender. The lone wolf always dies in the winter. It is the highly engineered, ruthless pack that survives the cold and dominates the territory. The architecture of the network is now in place. The mind, the money, and the men are aligned. But these assets remain static without a narrative to drive them. To maintain this structure, you have to master the ultimate weapon. Next time, we deconstruct the mechanics